Welcome to B2B Marketers on a Mission, a podcast for B2B marketers that helps you to question the conventional, think differently, disrupt your industry, and take your marketing to new heights. Each week, we talk to B2B marketing experts who share inspirational stories, discuss their thoughts on trending topics, and provide useful marketing tips and recommendations. And now, here's your host and co-founder of Einblick Consulting, Christian Klepp. Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the B2B Marketers on a Mission podcast, where you get your weekly dose of B2B marketing insights. This is your host, Christian Klepp, and today I am joined by someone on a mission to develop B2B brand strategies that wow. So coming to us from Wayne, New Jersey, Mr. Christian DeGobbi. Welcome to the show.
Christian, thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure, Christian, and great name, by the way. I'm really looking forward to this conversation because this is a topic that is very close to my heart as well. Anything to do with B2B branding, right? Okay, fantastic. So, Christian, you've been a professional marketer for many years, but for this conversation, let's focus on a topic that you're clearly very passionate about. And in fact, I think you even wrote about it on your LinkedIn profile, and it's developing B2B brand strategies that wow. So talk to us about why you think that's so important in B2B and why a brand strategy is a must-have and not a nice-to-have.
I think that's a great way to start. Today, there's so much noise out there today amongst B2B brands, whether it be B2B or B2C. Technology has just forced us towards that. There are a lot of distractions today from mobile, website, social media, everything. And it's a challenge. And it's a challenge that I like as a marketer, a B2B brand marketer today, to stand out today. It's very important to stand out today, to craft your own story, your own niche, your own content, and to really distinguish yourself from other brands. And it really goes outside your industry today to distinguish your brand, not only within your industry, but amongst all the other noise out there today, to really make your brand stand out today, through messaging, through content, through your website, through your social media posts. It's very important to be different today. And not only that, but not be afraid to be different, to take chances. And that it could happen through your content, your videos, the influencers that you get to write for you. And that all goes into understanding your competitors, doing research, which we're going to get into hopefully, and just understanding where you fit in the landscape within your industry, and being different, not for the sake of being different, but to truly understand your company and the story you want to tell. So being different and offering your clients different experiences, interactive experiences, including their points of view, very important to differentiating your brand today.
Absolutely. You've brought up a couple of great points, and I'd like to go back to them. Do you think that a lot of B2B companies, not all of them, but many, where do they go wrong? I mean, like, why do they drown in the sea of sameness, as you just mentioned? Like, why is everybody, trying to do the same thing? Is it because they're trying to use this play it safe approach? They're in this very risk averse environment, or what are your thoughts on that?
I'm gonna play off your last words there, Christian. Risk averse. I think they're very risk averse. I think I'd use the word frightened to be different, be frightened to take chances, to do things differently. I think they're very wanting to play it safe, wanting to do what they did last year, wanting to do things the safe way. So I think it comes down to playing it safe and a mentality of what's worked in the past is going to work in the future, which is a dangerous way to think with how fast not only business, the world, technology is moving today, but also marketing and the way our consumer habits for your company are changing today. I think they're timid. I think they are very overly cautious is a great way to put it. I think you used a great term, but overly cautious and afraid to take chances today.
Absolutely. I love that last bit, or something you said in the past couple of minutes, where you said what's worked in the past will work in the future. Well, if we've learned anything from these past 2 years, is that nothing is permanent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a fluid situation, and that applies across the board, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big wake up call, like you said, the past couple of years.
Absolutely.
And for business, for marketing, for technology, the pandemic has definitely accelerated or opened people's eyes to change, hopefully, and how quickly things change. And so hopefully, we'll take that pandemic as a wake-up call.
Yes, indeed. Talk to us about, and you've probably seen a lot out there, talk to us about some of the common mistakes and or misconceptions that B2B marketers make when it comes to developing an effective B2B brand strategy, and what can be done to address these.
I think, well, there, a lot of parts, to building a B2B brand strategy. I mean, first you have to have, obviously buying from senior level executives and get everybody on board, internally and externally. And the feeling that, it's fine to go ahead with internal research only. There are a lot of different pieces of the puzzle to collecting research for B2B brand marketing, namely internally, your salespeople, your product people, senior level executives, business development. Getting their feedback is very, very important. Absolutely. The one miss, a big piece of that puzzle, I would argue the biggest piece of that puzzle in collecting that research today is first-hand party data. We can talk about cookies going away, permanently over the next, few years. And
amen.
Yeah. Robotic marketing is not good. Yeah.
No.
So a big piece of the puzzle, and to your point, we should be preparing as marketers today for that going away of collecting data from engagements online. And I think I'm a proponent of it going away. So a big piece that they're missing right now today is first-hand party data. Literally collecting feedback from your clients, whether through surveys, speaking to them, and incorporating that feedback that no internal source can give you into and feeding your marketing strategies and tactics, your messaging, the content that you develop. Critical. Today, I'm a little surprised that more B2B marketers and salespeople and BD people, I'm surprised that there's not more clamoring for that first-hand party data. I mean, they should be bugging marketing people every week. What are our clients saying about their brand experience? What are they saying about our content? What are they saying about our website? What are they saying about our social media? What are they saying about doing business with us? What are they saying about doing business with us through onboarding, through client engagement after they're a client? I mean, everybody should be clamoring for that first-hand party data. And that's something that marketers have to step up on and demand, really, as a must from their company.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think you really hit the nail on the head there. I had a follow-up question of that because this is something that we discussed in a previous conversation, Christian. At least from what I've seen in B2C, like just think about a company like Coke or Pepsi, right? They would never dream of launching a product onto the market without conducting that market research. So why is it, at least in your experience, why is it that in B2B companies that seems to be optional?
That's such a great question. I think you have to go back. I think you have to go back to the birth of B2B and B2C as we know it. And this is another webinar, another podcast entirely, but there is a history to it. And my take on the quick history of why it is the way it is today, I think there was a misconception on the part of B2B and a good conception on the part of B2C, where B2C products, a candy bar, a can of soda, bag of potato chips, anything that you get, like an impulse buy, we call them. It's natural. It was natural for them to ask their impulse buyers or everyday consumers for feedback. It just made sense. B2B, they got confused. And again, I think this is changing. They got caught up in that it's not an impulse, and it's not an impulse buy, B2B. You're talking about millions of dollars about purchasing system-wide technology or an ERP, or spending hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars over the course of your contract for a B2B buy. They interpreted way back when, B2B marketers, that that mindset is different from B2C, when in fact it's really not. B2B buyers still buy, they're human beings. It's not a building you're marketing to. You're still marketing to human beings who have emotions, who have a sense of humor. And B2B buyers thought, like, wow, this is so serious. And it is a big purchase, but we have to market to them differently. We have to be serious. This is a serious buy. We have to, talk to them differently. Yes, there is a difference between B2B and B2C. B2B marketers way back when, and again, it's getting better, are starting to understand the role emotion plays in marketing, even for multi-million-dollar purchases. The role humor, to a certain degree, plays in their multi-million-dollar purchases. And some B2B companies today, thankfully, are taking a page from the B2C handbook on how to market towards B2B consumers. So there is a closing that B2B misconception that just because they're spending millions of dollars, that their emotional state and their mind thinks differently from buying a candy bar to a multi-million-dollar solution, when in fact, it's really not that big of a difference.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, those are some really, really interesting points, and certainly in B2B, the buyer's journey is not that linear, right? I mean, I think if anything, linear is probably not the word that comes to mind. It's a bit more haphazard, right? But at the end of the day, going back to your point, and you've probably seen, I think, at least 10 posts on LinkedIn that I can think about where people say, in B2B, people will still buy from people they know, like, and trust. So it's that credibility piece. And how do you get that credibility? It goes back to brand. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's a great point, Christian. I mean, one of the first things I learned, I started my career at advertising agencies in New York City. So I was kind of always behind the scenes planning campaigns back then in the late 90s, pretty much just TV, print, and outdoor, radio. Right. So when I jumped into the B2B marketing world in 2002, one of the first things I learned from a great boss back then who I had when I first started in B2B marketing. Exactly what you said, Christian. It's people buy regardless of the price, regardless of your product or differentiators. Don't get me wrong, those are great to have. Absolutely great to have. To your point, Christian, I totally agree with you. People buy from the relationships that they build and the trust that they build in B2B marketing. And that trust comes absolutely from marketing, their advertising, their messaging, their social media presence. Also comes, from sales, building that relationship. And that's where sales and marketing really needs to get on, on the same page. Because like you said, it's all about building that trust and likability. People buy from people they trust and like, regardless of the price of your product. So excellent. I love your point.
Yeah, no, exactly. And yes, I did know that you started out in advertising in New York City, but you guys, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys didn't draw your best ideas on a napkin like Don Draper did you?
No, that was many years before I started in advertising and many years after. I wish I could have done that in advertising.
Right. Fair enough. You touched on this a little bit, like in the past couple of minutes, but explain the importance of conducting the right research, I'm going to say, and having clear goals and objectives before jumping into developing a brand strategy.
Yeah, I think that's very important. To have a plan going into a rebrand or refreshing your brand or anything like that. I think obviously having a plan for anything, personally or professionally, is a must. So it definitely starts with getting buy-in. Making the senior level executives aware of the need to make your brand current, to refresh it, to whatever that might entail. It could entail everything from your website, your content, your messaging, your look and feel, your imagery, the videos that you produce, the stories that you tell, even your logo. Sometimes your logo might need an adjustment. And that's what people really think of, right? When they think of brand, your logo. And sometimes that's the case. Sometimes it's not. So I think that, like you said, that's a great starting point, Christian.
No, absolutely. And so we get to the bit where, just think about this like maybe like a Lego piece, right? You got to break it down into its parts, right? So just explain the parts and the different elements that are needed to develop an effective B2B brand strategy.
That's a really great question. There is no one silver bullet. There are a lot of moving pieces to a brand, like you said.
Right.
I think the first thing that you really have to get serious about as a company with your brand is really understand like the story that you want to tell. Like, what do you stand for? And I'm not talking being vocal with the political climate or anything like that, but really getting honest with yourself about what your brand stands for and being honest with that. So what I'm really going to, about is like your brand story. And your brand story is not your products. It's not the services that you push out there on your website. It's about your story. It's about how you started. It's about what you stand for, about what you want to do. It's about how you're helping your communities. It's about what you're doing. I think I said this for your clients. So really nailing down what you do well. So just reminds me real quick about a SWOT analysis is very helpful. What you do with SWOT analysis. Focus on your strengths of what you do really well. Tell that story. And your story should not include your products. There's a great saying I like by David Meerman Scott. I've read a few of his books. Awesome. Love him. He said, and I love the saying, nobody cares about your products except you. And it's so true, especially in today's world and the climate we live in today. It's a great quote.
Sorry, can you please say that a little louder for the people in the back?
Yeah, David Meerman Scott. David Meerman Scott.
Yeah.
Several of his books I've read. I mean, one of my role models, you know, in marketing reading, David Meerman Scott, he said it. And it's so true. And a lot of people have a hard time comprehending that. Like, they just don't get it. I was like, they're like, we're about our products. So, like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But he said, nobody cares about your products except you. And and it took me a little while as a B2B marketer to understand that. What does he mean by that? It means that it's not about your products. It's not about selling your products or services. It's about selling your story. It's about selling what you're going to do for them. It's about comfort. We've talked about before. It's about selling trust. And you can tell those stories without mentioning a peep about your products and services. So that's one of my favorite sayings. One of my favorite sayings by him. So your story, other ingredients, your content, you know, as far as a brand, the content that you develop, again, not product driven, your content that you're selling, include your clients, include your clients in your story, in videos. I'm a huge fan of videos today about telling your story. Again, not product driven, but telling your stories with your clients. And any partners or affiliations that you might have as well, I think are very important as well. But bottom line, keep your marketing and advertising and your content and videos and stories and messaging away from your products and services. Your clients, prospects don't care.
Fantastic points. There was something that you mentioned, and I wanted to go back to it because it reminds me about, you're talking about telling your story and how you involve your customer in that story. And I think we've talked about this before. So there's a book called Building Your Story Brand by Donald Miller, right? And he incorporates something from, I'm going to call it a formula, right? It's a formula that's been used to tell stories, whether it's through myths and legends across different cultures around the world. And it was something that a professor named Joseph Campbell actually coined, right? And it has 7 steps, I believe it is, right? So it's a hero has a problem, meets a guide who gives him or her a plan, encourages them to take action so that they succeed and avoid failure, right? And if you look at any advertising campaign, right, regardless of which market it is, or the best brand story cases out there, they basically follow this pattern, right? And it's going back to what you were saying earlier. It's about bring that customer into your story. I mean, talk about your company, of course, but bring the customer into the story and make them the hero.
Right? Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. I never thought about it like that. But yeah, I think that's a great point, to bring your clients in. I think there's very few things a marketing department or a B2B marketer should do without soliciting a client's voice, which reminds me of setting up a kind of like a voice of customer program, where you develop a group of 8 to 10 clients and prospects, and you set expectations and what you're looking for them to run by messaging, advertisements, articles by them to get their feedback first before you promote it and market out to a bunch of different digital channels for everybody to see. So to collect their feedback in a small group that is representative of your client base is invaluable. I think more marketers should be doing that today. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Okay. We get to the bit in the conversation where we talk about actionable tips, right? But let me just set this up, because let's appreciate that brand building does not happen in a day, right? So This is something that takes time. But that being said, there are steps that you can take immediately. So what are some of these steps that B2B marketers can take right now to develop a brand strategy that helps them to stand out amidst, to your point, the sea of sameness? So some quick wins, and what should they be focusing on?
Yeah, I think that's important. Like, how do we make a quick change? I would say, like, if I wanted to make a quick change in the company that I work for, as far as changing perceptions about the brand, creating awareness, educating our clients and prospects about what we do. It sounds simple, but video. We spoke about video so many times, so much during this call. But if you want a quick win, develop a company video about what you do. Have senior level executives passionately talk about what your company does. Again, excluding your products. Glance over that, of course, but talk about what your company's about, what your mission is, why you started, what you're doing for companies today, without mentioning your products. A quick win, develop that company video with a couple of senior level executives in your company to talk about your brand. Get a good company to produce that video. A professional company who can come in and record, put B-roll footage behind that video, uppity music, make it energetic, and you have a beautiful company video that describes to the world, hey, this is what we do. Take snippets out of those videos as well and republish them on social media. But I would say the quickest win to really educate and define your brand would be a company video with, a senior level executives and just good background music, good B-roll footage to get people excited about your company. I would say would be the biggest thing you could do for your brand today.
Yeah, I'm definitely a fan of videos myself. I'm interested to get your thoughts. Interested to get your thoughts on thought leadership pieces. So what I mean by that is, like, everybody's talking about guesting on podcasts, organizing webinars, right? This is not something that's necessarily requires a significant investment on the part of the company. It just requires you to do it, right? So what are your thoughts on those?
Huge fan. I think you need to know where your customers are at today, which gets back to surveying your clients on as far as what do they prefer. Send out that survey, customer satisfaction survey. You should have a section within that survey on what type of content they like to digest. Do they prefer webinars, podcasts, white papers, blogs, videos, ebooks? There's a lot of different things that marketers can do today, and it's shooting in the dark, literally, if you're not getting feedback from your clients on what they prefer. But based on what you had mentioned, I think they're great. I think they're very effective, but you have to ensure that you are not wasting a lot of time and resources developing whatever it might be, webinars, podcasts, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
If you don't know if that's what they want. But the biggest thing is, which is an issue today, is getting the SMEs to find time to make time for that webinar, for that podcast, to provide talking points, to ghostwrite a blog article, and finding that time from the SMEs, I think I think a lot of B2B marketers today would agree that that's a big challenge, is to find SMEs time today to actually, do one of these marketing tactics.
So fantastic. So Christian, can you give us an example of a company, a B2B company that you think has developed a great brand strategy?
Yeah, it's a great question, Christian. I think it's very hard to do today, to break out that sea of sameness that we were talking about before, to really distinguish and differentiate your brand today. It's hard. I think if you don't like that challenge as a B2B marketer, you shouldn't be doing that, because it is a challenge, but it's a fun challenge. And I come across companies, B2B companies, that are wowing and making a difference and breaking out of sea of sameness. One that really stood out to me over the last year was what Cisco did in promoting their cybersecurity services. And they, I thought, took a very creative approach to broadcasting awareness about their cybersecurity services via a visual comic book. And they published it, and it was in PDF format, and it was everywhere. And it was a volume, a comic book that read like a story. Getting back to story, it read like a story with different characters about cybersecurity challenges and what can be done today with different scenery. I just thought it was a very, very creative approach to creating awareness and educating clients and prospects about their cybersecurity solutions. I thought it was great. I thought it was really cool.
I actually looked that up the last time you and I talked about it, and I have to say that because I'm a bit of a comic book geek myself,
Me
right?
too. Yeah.
I thought they did such a great job with that one. And back to your point, it's on a topic, and to anyone out there who's in this field, I apologize in advance, but it can get a little bit dry and extremely technical, right? If you don't know what you're doing, right? And cybersecurity is, one of those topics. This is something that will not go away, because for as long as there's cyber threats out there, right? And that's just going to become even more paramount, like for companies to look into cybersecurity. But there was another case study, because you had me thinking there was another case study from back in 2013. It was launched by GE, and it was a campaign called Datalandia, right? And again, it was on the topic of big data. And big data, it's extremely difficult to talk about that in a way that's, entertaining is already a challenge, but interesting. And, for people who are not in, data analysts or data scientists, how do you get their attention? So they came up with this campaign where they created these mini videos or mini series, right? And it was all based in this miniature town, which they had actually built in Germany. And it's to highlight how big data plays a role in people's lives, right? And the small town basically was invaded by vampires and aliens, and big data saved them, right? And that was a campaign that was rolled out by GE.
Very cool. Like you said, taking a dry topic and making it fun and engaging.
Yes.
That's an awesome example. Love it. Yeah. Yes. Much needed in B2B marketing today.
Yes.
That kind of creativity and outside the box thinking. Great example, Christian. Yeah.
Here's hoping to see more of those, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. This is a topic that, people in the branding world may or may not like, but at some point you're going to have to show results. And results sometimes come in the form of metrics, or oftentimes come in the form of metrics, I should say. So what specific metrics do you think marketers should be looking at when it comes to brand strategy?
I think there are a few different metrics buckets that when you're measuring your brand today. I think it's important to mention that the first thing you want to do when you get buy-in and decide on executing a brand refresh or a rebrand or a tweak or whatever is to benchmark with anything, to baseline, because you want to know moving forward, whatever you do brand-wise, that you're moving the needle, which is very important, for you as a marketer, to show your CMO, C-suite executives exactly how you're moving the needle on your brand perception. So I think there are a lot of different buckets after you benchmark to measure your brand performance. One, you kind of like your brand equity. What's the value of your brand today as far as perception, like how people view it? If they how they view it against your competitors, I think is very important. Is your brand equity, your brand perception, your brand value, as far as how much, with value with anything, how much you're paying versus how much you're receiving is a value there. So I would, there's a lot of different examples like that where as long as the value's there, it's worth it. I mean, I'd be willing to pay a lot for a service or a product if the value is there. So brand value, I think, is very important. Brand perception, brand equity, all metrics that you can measure through a brand perception study. And you could do those brand perception studies internally. There's a lot of templates out there online if you can't afford to hire a great brand company like yourself, Christian, or you can hire a brand company like yours to conduct that study for you, to come up with the right questions, to ask about equity, perception, value, and to measure that, to take those measurements from your clients about how they feel about your brand, and do that same study, that same brand perception study, I would say no sooner than a year. To your point, it takes a long time for whatever you're doing, marketing, advertising, branding wise, to take a foothold in the market, to get inside people's minds about your brand. It takes a long time to change the human brain as far as your brand. So I would say, at the least a year to do another brand perception survey. So that's where I would start, is that brand perception study, to measure a bunch of different aspects across your brand.
Yeah. It's almost as if, and that was actually going to be my next question about, how often should these brand perception surveys be done, or studies? Because it's always important to show, okay, this is where we were before, and this is where we are now, thanks to the efforts that we have implemented, right? Or the activities that we've initiated, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Very important.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to know where you're coming from, right?
Absolutely. Okay. A status quo that you passionately disagree with, and why?
Disagree with wholeheartedly, Christian.
Yes. Get up on your soapbox and go.
Is that B2B marketers today, and I think it's getting better, Christian, is the perception that B2B marketing, and I guess it's due to the cost and the sales cycle, how long it is, but the perception I most disagree with is that B2B marketing, it has to be devoid of emotion, completely devoid of using humor in your advertising, social media posts, advertisements, webinars. At the end of the day, as you know, Christian, we are advertising towards human beings. We're not advertising to a B2B marketing building, or a statue or anything like that. We are advertising to human beings, the same human beings who buy B2C products. So I think B2B marketers are getting better at this. I think they're seeing, per the Cisco example that I tossed out there, the GE example that you tossed out there, I hope they're seeing the case studies and the news and the stories of how B2B marketers and brands are breaking that mold of seriousness and staying in a tone that is devoid of emotion, and I like to call it human-based marketing. So I think it's getting better. Long way to go, but that's a perception that I think B2B marketers unfortunately still have today. And sooner or later, I think it's going to catch up to them, because this smart B2B companies, smart B2B marketers are going to start taking that page from the B2C handbook, and it's going to resonate with the human beings that they're marketing to.
Absolutely. I think, that was a great example. Like Cisco's a great example. I've seen it with a couple of other companies and even former clients that I've worked with who have made that change. And I would just want to add that this is another misconception that many B2B companies have that I've seen out there. They think that you can only do that if you're a big corporation, and I tend to disagree with that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think a lot of, like you said, Christian, that's a great point. I think a lot of bigger, smaller and mid-sized companies,
Yeah.
they might not think they have the resources or anything like that to
Yeah.
do what the big companies do as far as video production. But I think that's false. I think as long as you have human beings with a mind that can think creatively, there's no category for being big, small, or medium-sized business to not execute creatively like that.
Exactly. Christian, this has been a great conversation as expected. And again, it's a topic very close to my heart. Like, I'm very passionate about branding. And so please, quick intro to yourself and how folks out there can get in touch with you.
Yeah, Christian, thank you so much for being a guest on your podcast. I have enjoyed all of our conversations between you and me.
Likewise.
LinkedIn, I'm very active on LinkedIn. It's linkedin.com, Communicating Christian. And quick shout out, since their inception, a member of the SOAR Marketing Society that Stacey Danheiser started about a year ago or so. But it's the best marketing community that I've ever been a part of. She's a great host, super knowledgeable, super passionate, keeps us engaged. So I would highly recommend joining the SOAR Marketing Society by Stacey Danheiser as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I second that. All right. Thank you so much, Christian. It's been a pleasure. Take care, stay safe, and talk to you soon.
You too, Christian. Thank you very much.
All right. Bye for now.